My name is William Flores, Bill Flores.
And where were you born?
I was born in Fresno, California. Do I need to speak into this, or can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay.
Who are or were your parents? Okay, so what were your parents' occupations?
My father was a deputy sheriff in Fresno County, and my mother was, she did a lot of stuff. She raised 5 kids, and worked in a library, worked in retail. You know, back in those days with that many kids, you did whatever you could to feed them, clothe them. So she did a lot of different things. My dad professionally was a deputy sheriff, detective.
Do you have any siblings?
I have 3 sisters. I have a brother, but he passed away several years ago. So.
Did they serve in the military as well?
No.
What were your parents' or siblings' feelings when you joined the military?
My dad was proud. My dad was a World War II veteran. He was a tail gunner on a B-24 bomber and was shot down on his 7th mission in Nazi Germany and spent the rest of the duration of the war as a prisoner of war in a Nazi prison camp. My mom, not so much. I was for all practical purposes, I was the only son, because my brother, like I said, passed away a long, long time ago. And so she wasn't real hot on me going in the military at all.
What primary and secondary schools of college did you attend?
After I came home, I went to Fresno City College for 2 years, studying aviation. And then I went to 1 semester after I got out of high school before I went to the military. And all I did then was just play, so I wasn't real serious about it. So.
And did you have any jobs before entering the service?
Before what?
Before entering the military?
Yeah, I started working when I was a kid. I started working in the fields when I was 13 years old. I graduated from there. I worked in restaurants, worked in a lumber mill. Yeah, I had quite a few. I worked in gas stations, a skating rink.
Can you tell us about when you were in the military? Like, were you drafted or did you enlist?
I volunteered for the draft. A friend of mine, used to work in a restaurant. He came in one day and told me that he volunteered for the draft and he's supposed to get his draft letter in July. And I got a little upset with him because I told him, look, you know, we're pals. We're supposed to go in the military. We'll go together on what they called a buddy system. So I went down and I went to the draft board and I requested to be drafted in July of that year. Well, as fate would have it, he got arrested for drunk driving. And you couldn't go in the military if you had a court date pending. So I went off, and here I am sitting by myself instead of with him. And then the judge told him, back in those days, I guess they don't do that anymore, but they gave him a choice, go in the military or go to jail, one of the two. So he enlisted in the Marine Corps. So here I was in the Army, and he's off running around the Marine Corps. But we wound up being in Vietnam at the same time. So.
That's very interesting. Why did you choose? Well, I guess you just said why did you choose to join? And which branch did you enter?
The Army.
Why did you choose that branch?
Because my buddy said he volunteered for the draft, and the Marines weren't drafting, the Army was drafting. That's the only one that drafted. So.
What type of training or schooling did you have?
Well, I went to basic training at Fort Lewis, Washington. That's where they teach you how to be a soldier and march and shoot and do push-ups and a lot of exercises and run and all that kind of stuff. Then after that, I went to what they call AIT, Advanced Individual Training, and I spent 3 months at Fort Eustis, Virginia, learning to work on helicopters, CH-47, or twin-engine, twin-rotor helicopters in Fort Eustis. And then I went overseas, and then they put me in what they call a Huey, a whole different type of helicopter altogether. So. But I was in aviation, working on flying, not as a pilot, but as a crew member, helicopters when I was overseas.
What was your first assignment after basic training?
Well, it was my advanced individual training at Fort Eustis, Virginia. That's where they sent me. That was my next assignment.
Do you recall any of your instructors?
Not really. They're just the instructors we had in aviation were Vietnam veterans. They had gone over there, did their thing, they came back. Now they're teaching the new generation, which I was part of, the new generation. So I was being taught by Vietnam veterans who were actually there working on aircraft and flying as crew members.
What was the hardest part of your training?
The hardest part what?
Of your training.
Honestly, doing the math. I had my advanced individual training. I was in a classroom. A lot of guys were out, the foot soldiers were out learning how to be foot soldiers, infantry soldiers, running around in the mud and sleeping in the rain and all that kind of stuff. I was indoors. My training was all indoors, classroom. I was never really good at math. And I learned real quick that if I'm going to do what I need to be doing, I better get pretty sharp on math. So it took me a while, but I got in there and got it done. So.
Did you receive any promotions?
Yes, I did. I got what's called a E5. I was in the Army. They have specialist ranks. Other military services, they have hard stripes that you see on the uniforms. An E5 has 3 stripes. And my patch was, I had a patch. I didn't have stripes. In the Army, they gave you the specialist patches. I was a specialist because I was specializing in a specific field, which was aviation.
Was it hard for you to adapt to the military lifestyle?
Well, yeah, when you're a kid, I was 18 years old when I went in, so you're not used to, standing at attention and saluting and doing push-ups because you did something they thought you weren't supposed to do, and it's pretty, they discipline you in basic training, so it's a whole different lifestyle. They yell and scream and rant and rave and get right in your face, and sometimes they make life pretty miserable, the drill sergeants.
In combat, how did the experience change you?
Interesting question. I spent a lot of time in combat flying in helicopters. I was a door gunner and a crew chief. It was, when you're actually in combat and doing the fighting, it's not something you really think about, or what am I going to do next? You just react and you just do whatever it is you got to get done to survive. It's after the battles are over, is when you sit down trying to light a cigarette and your hands are shaking so bad, and then you start thinking about things. Wow, I could have been dead. And then sadly, you got to get back up and go back to the same place you just left and get shot at some more. So it makes you reflect. And it makes you think, wow, I'm a lucky guy. So.
What kinds of friendships did you form while serving?
Well, there's a lot of guys in a company of infantry soldiers or aviation units or whatever you do. There's a lot of guys in each one of those units. And you make friends with the guys that do what you do. Like I was in an aviation unit, but the mechanics made friends with mechanics. The motor pool people made friends with motor pool people. The flight crews made friends with the flight crews, and the maintenance guys. There's a big, tight communication thing there. So I made friends with probably half a dozen guys out of all the guys that were there. And when I was there were several hundred in my company. But I made friends with about half a dozen, 8 or maybe 10 of them. Some of them didn't survive the war, and some of us did. So.
Do you still talk to any of those people?
Yeah, for about 30 years, I lost contact with all of them. I had no contact at all. And the internet came to be, and so I started looking for the helicopter company that I used to fly with, and I saw one little tiny picture of a place I was stationed at called Bearcat. And I got a hold of the, what do you call the guy that's in charge of the webmaster? Is that what he's called? Probably you guys, that's what our generations, I don't know what your generation calls it, but the guy who put the website together and built it all up. And I got a hold of him. He happened to be one of my pilots. So we talked for a long, long time, and then I found out that they had a reunion in Louisville, Kentucky. That was back in 99, I think, somewhere back in there. And we have one every 2 years. So yeah, ever since then, I keep in contact with these guys. And I just talked to 2 of them this last weekend. I called them on the phone to see how they were doing. One of them's not doing well, and the other one's, he's like me, we're okay. So.
What did you do for recreation when you were off duty?
Yeah, that off-duty time was pretty scarce. But we would, sometimes we'd have barbecues. Sometimes we'd have company parties, the whole company, like big trailers full of beer and steaks and stuff. The company commander set these things up for the enlisted crews and the officers, just to break the monotony of doing what you're doing every day. So that was our recreation. Then we'd come sometimes when I got off the flight line early enough after working on my aircraft, I'd go listen to music. Had a reel-to-reel tape player with music of the day. And I'd just sit there and for an hour or so before I went to bed and listen to music just to unwind.
Was there something you did for good luck?
For good luck? I'm a Catholic, and I flew with a rosary wrapped around my neck. And with my dog tags and my rosary. And our call sign for the helicopter gunship platoon, which I was part of, our call sign was bounty hunter. And we always wore a red rag around our neck for like a cowboy theme. And we had a big, huge picture, well, about the size of that picture over there on the wall, of Clint Eastwood. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Good, Bad, and the Ugly, but he played a cowboy, just a real bad guy. So we had a picture of him by the door, and every morning we'd walk out and salute the picture, and then I'd kiss my rosary and go out and start my day.
What was the best part of your service experience?
Getting out. The best part of my service experience, honestly, was the camaraderie that was developed between the guys that were there, working with them, flying. Because especially in the flight crews, we all do the same thing. We all go through the same experiences. We all get shot at in the same LZs. And so there's a camaraderie that's developed there and brotherhood. And that's the best part.
Do you recall any humorous or unusual events?
Well, you know, being in a war is not shoot 'em up, bang, bang every day. There's a lot of funny stuff that occurs. We were down one day we didn't have to go flying because we had to work on our aircraft just to make sure everything's working okay beyond the regular inspections. And so we started drinking beer in the middle of the afternoon, and then one guy found a first aid kit, so we threw some ketchup on a guy to make it look like he was bleeding. We had him all patched up, his head was all patched up, and we're taking pictures of everybody in the monsoon. Everybody's taking pictures of each other's armpits. Just fun stuff, you know, just to break the monotony and just have fun. We once played a football game in the monsoon rains. We took a sock and full of a bunch of socks and made a football out of it. And we're playing out with our no shirts but our fatigues and boots on, running around in the mud playing football. So yeah, you know, it wasn't all bad. We had some good times there too. So.
Do you recall the day service ended?
Do I recall the day what?
The day that your service ended?
Yeah, when I came back from overseas, they sent me to a place called Tobyhanna Army Depot in Tobyhanna, Pennsylvania. It's up in the Pocono Mountains. And I was assigned an aircraft there. I had 6 months left to do. And they had a compound here that was all civilian. What they did is rebuild radio equipment. And then I was the only aircraft mechanic, but I wasn't stationed. There was only about 88 GIs and 3,300 civilians. So I pretty much got to do what I got to do without much supervision. And there was a lieutenant there that just really got upset with me because I was not dressed. My boots weren't shined and my pants weren't bloused. And him, I looked like sad sack, just a little sad soldier. But I did it on purpose because I was rebellious. You know, what are you going to do? Send me to Vietnam? Been there, done that. So. But he really got to take a disliking to me. And ironically, when the day I got out, or the day before, actually, I guess it was, they give you a re-enlistment talk. They want you to re-enlist, and they offer different things to you. And back in those days, they offered what was called a re-enlistment bonus, a variable re-enlistment bonus. And based on what your job was, your MOS, which is your military occupational service, what you do in the military, based on that, you can get the maximum back in those days was $10,000. And that's what they offered me because I had what was called a critical MOS. I was in aviation and they needed them, people working on them. And I thought about it and I thought about it. I'm going, wow, that's a lot of money. But this guy did not like me a whole bunch. And I said, if I sign these papers, I'll be on a plane tomorrow back to Vietnam. Don't want to do that. So I got out. And when I met some friends of mine in Scranton, Pennsylvania, which is about 20, 30 miles outside of where I was stationed. I drove down there, I stuck my head in this bar we used to drink, and it says, I'm out of the Army, there's a keg of beer behind the school over here, yeah, and we're having a keg party. Half the city of Scranton showed up, it seemed like. There's 2 or 3 kegs there and bottles of whiskey and booze. We had a big party. Woke up laying on the ground out there with the sun rising, waking me up. So that was my day out of the Army, my last day of service.
readjust to civilian life?
Readjustment was a tough time. Sometimes it's been 50 years and I still wonder if I'm adjusted or not. It was tough. Not a lot of people wanted to talk to you. I used to tell people that the easiest way, the fastest way to clear out a room is to tell them, hey, I just got back from Vietnam. 5 minutes later, you're talking to yourself. No, nobody wants to hear about it. Didn't want to deal with it. A couple of guys make some comments. I may run across the guy that I went to school with, and I said, "Why? Hey, how you doing?" He goes, "Well, how you been, Bill? Haven't seen you in a couple of weeks." A couple of weeks? I've been gone for 13 months. What are you talking about? And then another guy said, "Well, I heard you were killed over there, so here I am. Prove everybody wrong." So, but the adjustment itself, it took some time. And like I said, it's 50 years later, I'm still wondering if I've adjusted or not. I've coped over the years, I'll put it that way.
Did you go back to school or?
Yeah, when I got out of the military, I went back to school at City College for 2 years, studying aviation. So.
How did service affect the way you relate to others?
How did what?
How did service affect the way you relate to others?
I don't really relate to others that well. It kind of dummied me up. Because like I said, the easiest way to clear out a room was to say you just came back to Vietnam. Nobody wanted to hear about Vietnam. It's a little bit more accepted nowadays than it was way back when. Yeah, didn't have need for a lot of people during those years. I just assumed to go off and be by myself somewhere. So.
Did you join a veteran organization?
Not immediately, no. I think the first veterans organization I joined was probably 10, 15 years ago. Started with the VFW. Now I'm a member of the VFW and the Disabled American Veterans, and we have a local group here, the Central Valley Vietnam Veterans, which Mr. Osborne is a member of also. And then there's a aviation veterans group called Vietnam Helicopter Crew Members Association. I'm a lifetime member of that. So, but I only get involved with the Central Valley Vietnam vets and the local AMVETs, and there's another group, AMVETs, and what's the other one?
American Legion.
American Legion, yeah. I'm not members of those organizations, but being involved with the Central Valley Vietnam vets, we're intertwined with those groups. So.
How did your military service experiences affect your life?
Well, it taught me, the military teaches you a lot. Discipline is very important. And I don't mean discipline by, left, right, that kind of stuff. Discipline in your normal life. When you go to work, do the best job you can. Just don't be a slacker. Discipline yourself to do things and do them right. My father used to tell me, if you're not going to do it right, don't do it at all. And it really makes, the military teaches the discipline to do it right. And being involved in aviation like I was, things on an aircraft have to be perfect. I mean, if one little tiny thing goes wrong, and there's a lot of moving parts in a helicopter, if one little thing goes wrong, you can kill a lot of people. So you're disciplined mentally to do things right and make sure you become a perfectionist. And that's what I was.
Is there any lessons that you learned from the military that you would want to teach others?
I've said for decades that I think every child or every young man and every young person should spend at least 2 years in the military, just to get a feel of what it's all about: discipline and honor, respect, patriotism. As far as advice, join the military. You guys are looking, everybody, I can't get a job, I did something. Well, military's hiring.
Has your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
Well, nobody likes to see war. It's, people die when there's a war. But a lot of times wars are necessary. You wouldn't be sitting here interviewing me, and I wouldn't be sitting here being interviewed had it not been for the wars that this country has fought. We could be speaking German at this point if World War II had failed. So although I don't like war, I understand war. Been there, been in war. And if I was young enough and the country needed me, I'd be right there again, doing it again. So. I didn't hear the last part of the question.
What message would you like to leave for future generations who will be watching this interview?
I would like to say, be true to your country, be true to yourself. This country was not built by people who didn't do anything. This country was built both outside of war and inside of war by people that had the courage to stand up and do what they did. Hundreds of thousands and millions of men since the birth of this country have died to keep us free. And a lot of people of younger generations don't understand that. They play their games on their video machines and they do their vaping or whatever they do. They really don't care. They don't study. They don't understand what's involved with the country the way it is today, what got us here. There was a lot of people died doing what we did.
Is there anything that you'd like to add that we have not covered in this interview?
No, not particularly. I mean, there's a lot of stories, but we don't have time for all the stories. So.
Is there anything you've always wanted to share about your service or veteran experience that you never have?
Just the fact that I'm a very proud veteran. I'm proud to have served my country. I'm very lucky to have survived the Vietnam War. And what I'm doing by being involved in other groups, veterans groups, hoping to pass on the traditions of the military, maybe encourage people, some kids to enter the military. Now, I'm very proud of the military we have today. See, when I was in the military, we got drafted. There was a draft. I don't know if you understand what the draft was, but when you're 18 years old, you went to the post office, filled out a card called a draft card, and then based on that, they would call you up when they needed you. Well, today's Army is all volunteer. Today's military is all volunteer. And these guys, these kids, I'm telling you, I am so proud of our military today. These people volunteered to go in the military. They volunteered to do whatever training they're trained to do, and they carry their missions out just unbelievably well. They're a very, very impressive group of young soldiers out there today, and I'm proud to see that.
What would you like people to know or remember from your story?
That I was here, that, again, I was proud to be a soldier. And you know, healing from being in combat sometimes, it takes a lot of years. And when the Vietnam veterans came back, we weren't treated very well at all. We were treated with just disrespect and disdain, indifference. It was really, really incredible. And that took a lot of years to get by. And still, like I said earlier, I'm not sure if I'm really that adjusted anyway. But I think, I'm kind of digressing here because I think I forgot the question. What do I want the kids to know is that to know there's life after the military, and that the military will help you grow. And our generation is honoring the younger generations in a way that we were never honored. And I want young kids to know that honor means a lot. It really does.
What do you wish more people knew about veterans?
I don't know that there's much that I wish that they knew, but there's a lot I wish they would understand. But I don't think they can understand it if they've never been through it. I wish they would understand the people that have gone through it and give them a little bit of slack sometimes when things don't go the way they would normally go. It's difficult, but again, it's all over. I mean, our days of fighting and being in the military, they're obviously gone. A lot of us, including myself, still right here like it was yesterday. So it'd be nice to be a little understood, a little bit better understood. But it's coming around. There's people that are talking to Vietnam veterans, and sometimes I walk down the street with my hat on, and people come and say, "Thank you for your service." I've been to events where they're just honoring veterans, not just Vietnam veterans, but veterans in general, at the high schools. I go and speak to the high schools like I'm doing here, at different high schools in Tulare County. See, one thing about getting old is your short-term memory kind of goes away. So again, I forgot what the question was on this thing.
What do you wish people knew about
Oh.
veterans?
Just understand what they've been through and be thankful for that they're there. So,
The thing I would like to know is how many patches did you get?
how many what?
Patches.
Patches?
Yeah.
You mean like awards? Oh, something you really don't like talking about, but I was awarded several awards. I've got 27 or 28 air medals, 2 of them with V devices on them for valor in action. I've got 2 Army Commendation medals, 1 of them with a V on it for valor in action. I was awarded a Bronze Star with the V on it for valor in action. Still fighting the VA, the VA to acknowledge that. They've never acknowledged it, so I've been fighting for a few years to get that acknowledged. Still haven't got it acknowledged, but I have a picture of a 2-star general hanging out on me, so it's there, it's legitimate, but I can't convince the VA. We've got our unit was awarded the Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry. So there's a few of them out there.
We have a few things from elementary and middle schools that we'd like to give you.
If you can look through them.
Now, what are these?
These are a few things that elementaries have made.
Oh,
That we
okay.
appreciate you.
Love dog tags. That's cute. For serving our country and protect. Thank you for your service. Are these for me? Oh, really? Well, thank you. That's very nice. I love this. Some of these I can't. Thank you, Devin. Well, some of these are just handmade by the kids, huh? Oh, very nice. Thank you very much. That's very cool. I love these dog tags.
I think that concludes our interview.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.